Marvin and Melvin James were born minutes apart in 1970 in a modest hospital in Detroit. Identical in every physical detail, from their deep brown eyes to a crescent-shaped scar over the left brow, caused by a childhood fall. They were inseparable as children. But as they grew, their personalities split like a fork in the road. Marvin was quiet, responsible, and protective of his family. Melvin was unpredictable, charming, but reckless. People in the neighborhood used to joke, "You never know which one you're talking to." The confusion started early. At 10, Marvin missed out on a perfect attendance award because Melvin had skipped school, using Marvin's name. Teachers had no idea it wasn't him. By age 13, a serious incident occurred. Marvin was accused of threatening a teacher with a pencil. The school nearly suspended him until Ms. Loretta James, their mother, arrived in fury. She had Melvin brought in and made both boys sit side by side in the principal's office. "I want you to look at my sons," she said firmly, "because one day, if you keep confusing them, one of them is going to pay for something he didn't do." From that day forward, Melvin was made to wear a bright red wristband whenever they were out. Ms. Loretta's attempt to separate their identities. But it didn't last. In high school, Melvin skipped class often and began experimenting with drugs. When caught, he gave Marvin's name. Marvin, unaware, was summoned to the counselor's office to discuss behavior issues he didn't recognize. By 17, Melvin had used Marvin's name during a traffic stop, resulting in unpaid tickets and a suspended license that Marvin was later blamed for. At 21, Marvin lost a job opportunity after a warehouse theft showed up on his background check. A job Melvin had briefly held under Marvin's name before vanishing with stolen tools. The stories continued. A landlord showed up at Marvin's apartment demanding compensation for a trashed unit. The lease had Marvin's name, but Melvin had lived there. A girlfriend of Melvin's came to Marvin accusing him of cheating, confused because she thought they were the same man. A hospital called Marvin about a missed substance abuse appointment. He had never been there. It was Melvin. Again, Marvin tried to set boundaries. He filed a report. He pleaded with his brother. Melvin would promise to stop, but always relapsed. "I'm just borrowing your life," Melvin once told him. "You've got it together." "I don't." But the borrowing would soon become a sentence. It was a cold January night in 1992 when a Detroit convenience store was robbed. The cashier was shot and critically wounded. Witnesses described the suspect: a tall black man, long braids, a scar near the eye. Grainy surveillance footage showed someone who looked exactly like Marvin. 48 hours later, the police knocked on Marvin's door. He was arrested in front of his daughter and pregnant fiancée. He matched the description. But no one asked if he had a twin. Marvin said he was home watching TV. But alone, with no one to corroborate, he had no alibi. He begged for fingerprints, DNA testing, anything. But the case moved quickly. Witnesses, unsure, pointed to him in a lineup. He looked like the man in the footage. The jury believed them. There was no forensic evidence. No fingerprints. No weapon. Just a face. A face Marvin shared with the true suspect. Marvin's conviction led to a 45-year sentence. Inside, he became inmate number 308116. Outside, life moved on. His daughter grew up without him. His fiancée eventually stopped visiting. His mother died in 2004, heartbroken. Melvin never came forward. Some said guilt ate at him. Others said drugs did. He became a ghost in Detroit, couch hopping, occasionally arrested under false names, spiraling. Marvin, meanwhile, kept writing. Hundreds of letters to journalists, lawyers, nonprofits. Only one ever wrote back. In 2018, the nonprofit Freedom for the Forgotten assigned a young attorney to Marvin's case. She noticed something odd in the original arrest file. The suspect had a tattoo on his forearm. Marvin didn't have tattoos. Melvin did. She tracked down old police files showing Melvin's history of impersonation. She spoke to ex-girlfriends who remembered Melvin bragging about getting away with things because he had a twin. Eventually, the bandana worn during the robbery, stored in evidence for over 2 decades, was retested. The DNA didn't match Marvin. It matched Melvin. But by then, it was too late for justice. Melvin had died of a heroin overdose just 3 months before Marvin's exoneration. Freedom and what was lost. In 2020, Marvin James was released. The courtroom was silent as the judge vacated his conviction. He walked out into a world he didn't recognize. His daughter was grown. His mother was gone. The skyline of Detroit had changed. The state issued an apology and offered $60,000 in compensation. 28 years, for just over $2,100 a year. I didn't want their money, Marvin says. I wanted my life back. But that's the one thing no one could give. Now, a voice for the voiceless. Marvin now speaks at schools, prisons, and advocacy groups about identity, justice, and forgiveness. He tells his story not out of bitterness, but to warn others. He often ends his talks with the words of his mother. The world may not know which of you is which, but God does. And one day the truth will too. And finally, after 28 years, the truth did.